All
All
right,
right,
there we
there we
go.
go.
Took for hours to set this up. So
So
I'm
I'm
going to
going to
live
live
code,
code,
um,
um,
and
and
hopefully
hopefully I can
that will
that will
work.
work.
And
And
I
I
immediately
immediately
have
have
technical
technical
issues.
issues.
Great.
Great.
Oh well. Um, guess you won't be seeing my face now. Doesn't matter. Let's get into it. All right. Maybe I can have my face later or something. Record here. There we go. Okay, so this is my first live stream thing that I'm ever doing, so there will be technical difficulties for me doing this. I'm working on a problem in my current milestone in Goldpath. So I'm in Goldpath right now. I'm working on a feature that allows stakeholders and developers to sort of meet in the same tool. And primarily what I'm doing now is I'm adding a voting feature that a stakeholder can go in and sort of vote on milestones to get sort of how much business value there is in this particular milestone that we're working. The idea is that your company probably has different stakeholders and they most likely will have different opinions about different milestones, and you have a very limited amount of developers. So it's important that you work on the right feature set, or the feature set that your company believes the most in. And a way to sort of get this shared understanding of that is to do voting. And there's a lot of different frameworks for this. So in GoldPath, I have implemented three different frameworks. One is just impact versus effort, very simple one. RISE, which is fairly popular. The Moscow, which is must, should, could, won't, have. So you can just raise your opinion on that. Very simple frameworks, really good to sort of drive alignment around, like from stakeholders, and make sure that the stakeholders also align on what they think is important. Because odds are two different salespeople will have different customers who has different needs, or your support department might have another need or something. And the last one is weighted scoring, where you sort of set up your own categories that you want to like vote for. And I think this is really important. If you set this up, then you can sort of have more a framework that is more suited to your specific company. And the idea, of course, is that you can come up with different like questions. When I first did this, I came up with 5 yes or no questions that I asked my stakeholders, and basically we gave them a point each. But that's the first time. That's 10 years ago. And since then, I've sort of refined it, and I found that it's easier to give instead of yes or no, which for some people can be feel very harsh as a decision. You can give a scale 1 to 5, sort of. How do you feel about this? Anyway, as the stakeholders vote on this, Goldpath will calculate a business value score that goes from 1 to 100. And that way, whenever you make decisions like on what milestones to start working on next, or assigning resources, if you're working with like assigning teams to things, or you need to communicate how the backlog is and the order of the backlog, why that's important, then you have some really good tools built into GoldPath immediately available for you. So a stakeholder can then go into their own sort of dashboard that's only available for a stakeholder. That's the voting dashboard, and then they can see sort of what milestones they haven't voted for, and then the milestones that they have voted for. And of course, this is a way to show you need to actually vote on these, and then on the lower ones, if you want to change your vote or anything, you can see that there. And the issue I have right now with this particular feature that I'm developing is that the business value score here is 1. And you can always, in GoldPath, you can highlight it and you can see sort of what the stakeholder has voted for and how they voted, their different stakeholders have voted. And as you can see, this should clearly not be a value of 1. And I can show this as like even more. If I maximize this, I have the issue. If I update my vote, it's still 1. So we need to sort of figure that out and see how we can solve it. So I have my server running here on my left, and on my right, I have the code. And this is the actual code that I run. I call it an action. We're using tRPC, so it is actually a mutation, but I'm using domain-driven design here to sort of design the system. So on a milestone, you can cast a vote, and like following CQRS, this would be a command. You call it an action because it's an action that the user takes. I think that aligns, that makes it a little bit easier to communicate about like these things instead of having all these weird nomenclature or like difficult words. So the first thing we do when we cast a vote is we actually use an upsert. I'm using Prisma to make sure that my vote is registered for this stakeholder, for this milestone, with this framework, with the criteria that I send in. So these values here are the criteria that I send in. And then of course I set an updated date just as timestamp. So once I do that, I get the milestone, make sure I have the latest data on that, get all the votes of the milestone. That's important because then I'm going to recalculate the business score with my cool business score calculator. That's something I did with TDD, so I know that one works. And then I just update the milestone and say, cool, the business value score for this one is bada. And then we can see it and we can hover and we can see everything. So that's cool. Obviously it works. I can see that the update actually sets a score. However, it calculates 1. The default is 0, so clearly a value has been calculated. And with a little bit of debugging, I figure out that what I'm sending here is, we can hover over this, a prioritization framework. Now, maybe we can look at the prioritization framework and see what that should look like. And maybe it's here. So we can see that is an ID. That's my different frameworks that I support. A name and a description, a score explanation, just explains how things work. And then we have the fields. And I did a little bit of debugging earlier, and so I know what's actually going wrong. And the issue is that we're more or less only sending, we're getting the frameworks from the prioritization file, same one that has calculations in it. But these are hard-coded. So if we scroll down, we can see this is like how the different setups work. But in the case of the weighted scoring, these are just hard-coded arbitrary values. So I need to get the criteria for the weighted scoring for what this project is actually configured for its prioritization framework. So what I need to do is we do have a project ID, I think. Yeah, we do. what I need to do is I need to get the project, the current project. We find the unique, we can use that one. So clearly I'm using Copilot. Currently I'm just on the normal GPT 4.1 framework, but that's yeah, not super important. Actually, we can just get the entire project because I think the project actually has the criteria on it. So let's do this. And then we get our framework. I don't like mutating this, but I sort of need to right now. Let's first get it working and then we can figure it out from there. So if the framework ID equals not impact effort, we don't have I want weighted scoring. Then the framework criteria equals project prioritization criteria. There we go. That should actually be it. Now there's a lot of red lines, a lot of stuff we don't like here. So let's see what it is. First and foremost, this is a find operation and we might not find the framework ID. I'm not super excited that this is an input, so I might change that. But first off, let's do that, get rid of that error message, and then we can see that we have this one. We actually looked at that one. It was here, it was the frameworks. So actually, let's do, this is an array. This is the type. Let's get the type. And we're going to use the type as a value. So we're going to import it here. And that should actually solve that one. Yes. Okay. And then we can't have an optional. So let's do that. And let's instead say we have a framework and we have a framework ID where framework ID weighted scoring. Can we do that? No, we can't. Let's do the hard-coded value for now. Weighted scoring. There we go. If we have that, then it won't, it's not assignable. String is not assignable. That's correct. That shouldn't be a string. So what should it be then? Oh, we're not using that, so we can lose that import. It's called fields. No, it's actually called criteria, which is good. I'm not, this is not good. Not excited about that. That I need to write down, that I should actually take care of. Okay. That explains some problems. So there should be a criteria and framework criteria, and that should be project criteria. Actually, I think that should be great. Yeah, of course that's not going to work. This should be, yeah, let's cast it because, so the criteria settings are actually stored in the database as JSON blob. There are drawbacks with that because like clearly we are losing some sort of typing along the way, which means if I change how these structures are stored, then we can see that we're not really going to get the output. Like it's going to be hard to update the database accordingly. So that's a problem. I'm going to add a post-it note here. Fields versus criteria. they should actually be able to share those settings. That should simplify my code a little bit. It's always good to have a external watcher look over your shoulder, make sure everything's going as according to plan. All right, we have the criteria. We're setting the criteria from the project, and then I don't like this mutation. I'm not super happy about it, so I actually might change this. So instead of sending a framework in, we might actually send the criteria in. Actually, that if we do a to-do here, that should explain that. Instead of framework, that criteria. Produces sweet. All right. So let's see if that works. It's probably not gonna work. It never works straight out of the box. Let's give it 100. And you can actually see that we're crashing because framework criteria is reduced. It's not a function. Let's see what we actually get from this one. We could performance debugging console. It was there. I saw it. And now it's lagging. Console log. Here we go. Get me that project. Actually, I want to see the criterion. No, given that, just give me that project. And we can actually do project and bubble. And that should mean to do that. So that's good. Not super happy about that mutation. All right. No point in moaning about it. Let's try and maximize the scoring in this middle one. Should still crash because all we did was add logging, but now we can see we have the prioritization criteria here. It is actually an object. It's not an array. It's an object. And we don't need that one anymore. If we look at the calculate score, we can see if we go down the weighted scoring, it will go through, it expects an array. So that means we should do, unfortunately, object values around okay. Let's first fix this. This is in fact a record string and then that for that a little bit. Wait, name ID, cool. Just making sure we have the same thing. We make sure that the parentheses are correct, and I actually want to keep that one because now we're going to do the horrendous thing and say object values. And clearly we can see that there are some typing issues here that I should resolve at one point. Cool. And you're complaining now because do I really need to? That would suck. All right, let's do ID, the whole shebang, typing. New type overlaps. Actually, that's the issue right there. There we go. All right, let's try that again. Vote successfully updated, but we're still getting that weird business value score. So it's actually not behaving the way I want. And like, even if I'm getting the right values, let's do a little bit of performance debugging because I don't know, it's late. I don't want to see the votes actually. So long framework, just all of it. That's gonna be great. vote. Should maximize everything. That's our framework coming out here. It's weighted scoring. We can see that the criteria is actually updated correctly. But I can also tell that this is not still not correct. Let's take a deeper look at that prioritization. Prioritization. So, go through the criteria. And go through all the sums and weights for each framework criteria. Normalize the vote. Interesting. And then we get a weighted sum. Let's look at the test for that one, because that should actually be what I want. Weighted score. These are just the names. Oh, that's create vote. It's actually this one that I want. Not happy. That is actually expecting the completely wrong typing. Ugh. That explains a lot. I've written the tests come to a completely different standard than the other. All right, I think this is about as far as I'll come tonight because I'm starting to become tired. I know the setup is actually working with the, well, except for my webcam, it got overheated. But I actually need to refactor this quite a lot. So I'm going to do that in the next live stream. If you want to join, that might be tomorrow, but it might actually be next week. We'll see. But now I have a plan. Now I know what's going wrong. And then I can also fix the fields and criteria mismatch on the actual property. That would be great. Cool. It's in the same file. Okay, let's do that. These can be fields. Okay, here we go. All right. Well, I was hoping to actually finish this feature today. I'm not going to do that. That sucks. But now I know what I need to do. I know I have some refactoring of the calculate business score that I thought that I was done with. So I need to redo that. And I can also do this better, actually. Since I'm refactoring that, I should use the object and then remove that entirely from the framework ID. Awesome. That will be my next live stream. I don't know. I'm sorry my webcam got superheated. Did not expect that. It was working when I was setting everything up. So hopefully you can see my face next time. Sorry to cut things off mid refactoring, but I realized that I won't be able to finish this now, not during the time that I have for this stream. So I'm gonna do the refactoring of this in my next live stream. All right. Still haven't figured that out. Thanks for watching. All right. Hopefully, see you next time.